Okay. Greetings, family. This is Iyapo Moyendekreations, born as Cassandra-Floyd, and also known as the Rogue Black Girl. If you are joining me live, or if you decide to join me in the morning or another day, then you are joining for the reading of the Great Cosmic Mother, Rediscovering the Religion of the Earth. And I am moving through this book relatively quickly. As you can see, it's a very lengthy one. And so I'm probably going to do 2 readings tonight. So if you see it later and you see me in the same outfit, that's why. I'm trying to make these videos, like shorter, like under an hour. But anyway, so tonight we will be continuing with the reading of the Great Cosmic Mother. Now that Black History Month is over, and I've done my event in honor of Harriet Tubman's 200th birthday, I will be reshifting the focus to the reading of this book and the subsequent workshops or book club sessions, if you will. So if you are interested in joining the book club for this book, check out the description. The book club is being facilitated through Facebook, though the workshop slash discussions that we have are actually via Zoom. But join the Facebook book club for this book. And also, my contact information is in the description. So if you want to reach out to me via my email account or my other social media, then those details are also in the description below. Be sure, this is new to me, be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the notification button if this is something that resonates with your spirit. So, with that being said, tonight we are going to pick up the reading of the Great Cosmic Mother we're still in section 3, chapters 19 through 23 for this first reading. Okay, so chapter 19, the islands of Malta and Gozo. On the islands of Malta and Gozo in the Mediterranean can be seen the clearest connection between the cave, the tomb, and the temple, all 3 being the body of the Great Mother. Sometime in the 3rd or 2nd millennia BC, or maybe earlier, an incredibly advanced culture developed on these small and isolated islands, which, situated between Sicily and the Libyan coast, were really right at the center of the ancient world. Malta and Gozo were an ancient sacred center for the religion of the Great Mother. From Europe, from Africa, and from the Aegean and the Near East, pilgrims traveled here, and the sick came to be healed. Over a period, perhaps, of 1,000 years, up to 30 huge megalithic temple structures were built on these islands. But there are no remains of houses, only the caves show any trace of inhabitation. The amazing architecture of the temples was far beyond its time. Pottery and carvings are found in the ruins, but there is a complete absence of metal, the only tools being rough stone implements and the horns of oxen and goats. Perhaps there was a religious taboo on the use of metal. No weapons were made or used on these islands. Metallurgy began, in fact, as a sacred technology of the goddess. Only ceremonial metals were cast at first. There was much taboo around the use of metals and no doubt secrecy around smelting methods. Pagan European witches and Native Americans share an ancient belief that metal interferes with magic. These are stone-oriented people who felt metals blocking and distorting psychic spiritual energy currents. Witches were not supposed to touch iron. Guy Underwood, a British water diviner, says his experiences have shown him that placing a metal object on a blind spring obliterates for a short time all geodetic reactions around it. Water is extremely sensitive to metals. The Malta and Gozo temples imitated the rock-cut megalithic tombs of the mainland. They were built in roundish chambers in clover leaf and crescent designs, around an inner courtyard with long connecting courtyards between them. No dead were buried in these temples. Bodies were still interred in caves and rock-cut tombs. But there was only a step from performing ceremonial rituals at the cave tombs to building special temples for the veneration of the spirits of the dead. The temples were built with enormous double walls, rubble, and earth piled in the space between the inner and outer wall. So, in effect, the temple was still inside the earth, as in as inside a mountain surrounded by powerful earth currents, similar to a Ratian organ chamber, in fact. In myth, Gozo was the island realm of Calypso, the daughter of Uranus. It was on Gozo that the patriarchal hero Ulysses was believed to have stayed, enchanted by the sorceress Calypso for 7 years. In myth, the huge temple of um, Genetesia, fourth millennium BC, was built by a giant Titan woman with a baby at her breast. Single-handedly, in one day, she hauled the huge blocks of stone to the building site and built the temple walls by night. This temple was 90 feet high, and some of its great stone slabs measure 5 yards by 4 yards. Mortar was used on the inside walls, which were then painted with red ochre, the color of rebirth. Some of the megaliths weighed 50 tons, and stone rollers that must have been used to transport the huge blocks have been found by the temple site. The entire population of the island must have worked during many generations to produce this single temple. What were they seeking? Probably what we would call the living darkness, the stillness of the tomb, the breathing silence of the womb of Mother Earth. The chambers, painted blood red, had no sharp angles. All the shapes are rounded or molded in curves and waves. There was no worship of the heavens in these temples, and no human sacrifice. There are traces only of animal sacrifice and the pouring of libations. Here, the living and the dead were as close as possible to each other. But the strangest thing is that the temple of the surface of the earth was only the entrance to a still vaster shrine beneath. Legends tell of a huge labyrinth, a catacomb, or rock necropolis built under the temple, a city of the dead, in which the whole island population ultimately resided. In fact, an enormous labyrinthine cave sanctuary has been found, the collective burial tomb of 7,000 bodies. This mass tomb was built in several stories out of subterranean rock, and at its entrance is the Trilithon gateway, giving access to the underground city, the abode of the perfect ones. Long vaulted corridors, blood-stained with ochre, led to a sacred, deep temple area with its altar, pillars, gateway, and spiral designs painted in red on the roof. It mirrored or echoed the temple built above ground. This was the center of something, as Malta and Gozo are indeed at the geographic center of the Neolithic great goddess culture, stretching from Africa to Scandinavia, from Sumeria to Spain, or to the sunken continent of Atlantis, as some believe. Forgot to start my other live. Anyway, as some believe. In this sacred space, priestesses of the great goddess contacted the spirits of the dead, consulted oracles, prophesied, and performed ritual healing. In the temple are huge squatting images of the goddess. These are of the same bulging, rounded shape as the temple. In later images, she wears a flounced skirt with small figures hidden in it for protection. She holds her arm raised to her breasts. Her head is smaller proportionately than the body and made of a separate material, and she wears a blissful expression, peaceful, gracious, and still. She meditates with closed eyes, sitting on a throne. She has small, delicate hands. The blood of sacrificed animals was poured into a stone vessel with a hollow base standing on the altar. The burning fire ceremonies were also enacted. These secret chambers of the Great Mother, where timeless mysteries, where timeless mysteries were performed, are guarded by her eyes. The cosmic symbol of the double spiral inscribed on the sealing stone. Plant, flower, and animal motifs are carved in relief on the walls and altars, and they show strong Cretan influence, evidence of much contact between these islands. The temples were also healing centers. The sick came to sleep in the huge stone chambers. Priestesses in clairvoyant sleep listened to the voices of the underworld. Divination and also acoustic conjuring were practiced. The priestess's disembodied voice from her little chamber, hidden in the thick walls, reverberated through the vaults via clay pipes and moldings, seeming the voice of the earth itself. People came on pilgrimage to sleep in the temple, to have dream communion with the powers of the underworld and the dead, to obtain counsel, wisdom, healing, and clairvoyant knowledge of the future. The temples contain two small figurines of sleeping women, sleeping to dream, to die, to wait for birth and rebirth. They echo the huge pregnant shape of her who has both impersonal and kind, both familiar and terrible, the earth embodying cosmic strength, mystery, abundance, and paradox. We don't know anything about the people who built these island temples. They were weaponless and so defenseless against warlike pirates who overran them, using metal weapons. These conquerors probably came by way of Sicily, bringing a culture much inferior to that of Malta. They still practiced some form of goddess worship, but they burned their dead, showing that they were in transition from matriarchal to patriarchal orientation. Since the Sky Father worshipping nomads from the east also practiced cremation, i.e., they sent the body spirit up to the sky rather than returning it to the earth womb. Okay. It is quite possible that Malta and Gozo were schools for priestesses. Such island schools are common in legend. Ancient Celtic myth tells of sacred islands inhabited and ruled by women, where the mysteries were kept and taught. According to Irish text, the Tuatha De Danann came from such an island in the north, where they had learned science, magic, art, and ancient wisdom from priestesses of the goddess Danu. Druids were buried in ceremonial groves on distant islands. According to the Roman Pomponius Mela, quote, facing the Celtic coast lie a group of islands which take the collective name of the Cassariites. Sena, off the coast of Breton coast, was renowned for its Gaelic oracle, whose priestesses, sacred for their everlasting virginity, were said to be 9 in number. End quote. These priestesses were called Galatians and had magic powers. Quote, to unleash the winds and storms by their spells, the metamorphose any animal according to their whim, to cure all disease, said to be incurable, and finally to know and predict the future. But they reserved their remedies and predictions exclusively to those who traveled over the sea expressly to consult them. End quote. They were 9 in number because 9 is the triplicity of 3, the sacred number of the moon goddess. Girls who were to become priestesses were chosen at the age of 9. 9 priestesses are pictured dancing around the Ithalic young man in a cave painting at Cagul in northeastern Spain, dating from the Old Stone Age. Aranganation period. Arranged in a crescent, the dancing nine represent the moon's phases, growing older in a clockwise direction. Three young girls, three strong grown women, three thin dark crones. The oldest, with an old moon face, dances widdershins counterclockwise. This painting could be 30,000 years old. So primordial is witchcraft. On the sacred island of Avalon, Apple Island, Morgan Le Fay, the fairy, ruled over 9 sisters and taught how plants can be used to cure illness. She knew the art of changing her outward form and could fly through the air with the aid of magic feathers. She was one of the many renowned shamans practicing ancient women's wisdom on an enchanted island. The Temples of Malta and Gozo reveal that such legends were based in reality, as legends usually are. All that remains of the Maltese island people are their resonant stone temples, but their religious ideas and rites were similar to those surviving in the mystery cults of classical Greece. Such survivals show that early Christianity's belief in the body's immortality grew from very deep and ancient pre-Indo-European, pre-patriarchal roots. Delphi was another oracle shrine tomb. Located on the Greek mainland, it was ruled over by a spiraling python serpent and a prophetic priestess who served Gaia, the Earth Death Mother. The python was housed in the Omphalos, or navel shrine, the navel of the earth, built underground in beehive shape, originally perhaps deriving from the African Masobo, or ghost house. The name Delphi comes from Delphine, the great snake of the mother. The mother's most ancient name at Malta had been Delphine, since she was part serpent, and the name comes from the ancient word Delphis, meaning womb, and is now the brand name of a contraceptive foam. Apollo, the patriarchal sun god of classic Greece, was a mythological latecomer in the auricular shrine at Delphi, though now he is always associated with it. Apollo began as an underground auricular hero, in fact, and his name means apple man. In classic myth, he could not rule at Delphi until he had slain the sacred python with his arrows, or his phallic sunbeams, as Zeus had also killed the dragon offspring of the earth goddess Dodona. But even after the slaying of the symbolic python, the prophetic Sibyl at Apollo's Delphi remained a woman. Bending over her tripod, inhaling smoke, and entering trance, she pronounced her judgments on past, present, and future acts of the Greeks. But Apollo, as harbinger of patriarchal sun god technology, increased the production demand on the oracle beyond her endurance and human capacity, driving her mad. As John Mitchell has noted, the same policy of artificially inducing and mechanically increasing the earth's fertility, attempting to mass produce fruits for profit rather than accepting what is given organically by nature, can be found wherever solar gods assumed management over the ancient shrines of the goddess. Blood was used in the Delphic shrine to feed the ghost and make them return, to speak and prophesy through Sibyl. To make them speak. Ugh. To make them speak. To make them speak through Sibyl. And make them speak through Sibyl. The Sibyl drank the blood, producing in herself prophetic ecstasy. Sounds of peepings and mutterings and eerie bat-like voices speaking through her were believed to be the voices of ghosts. This was the function of ancient human and animal sacrifice. The recently dead were more easily recalled from the other world and not so potentially dangerous as the long dead. Through these death confidants, the priestess gained knowledge of healing in the future. The bull with the lunar horns was associated with the underground rituals. Bull's blood was believed to be the most potent magic and diluted with it and most potent magic and diluted with water, it was used to fertilize the fields and orchards of Crete and Greece. Drunk straight, it was considered a deadly poison to anyone but sibyl or priestesses of the goddess. Archaically, bull sacrifice took place in a ritual circle of 12 stern herms, pillars at the foot of the sacred hill. Half of the bull's blood was sprinkled on a 13th herm in the circle's center. The rest was poured into a large basin from which the priestess drank. The Celts also used bull's blood for divination. Irish poets had to drink bull's blood and then lie down to dream in order to tell the truth. That is the end of chapter 19. Let's see, I'm going to take a minute. Let's see. Let's just pause this really quick. Come on. Whatever. Okay. All right. That was the end of chapter 19. Chapter 20. 12 circling dancers. Again and again, in the religion of the Great Mother, one comes across 12 dancers and others in the round dance. I would have it called a mystery, end quote. These are supposedly the original words of Christ leading the 12 apostles in a hymn to the biblical Father. And the following comes from the Gnostic round dance taken from the apocryphal Acts of St. John. Quote, "And we all circled around him, her, and responded to him, her. Amen. The 12th of the numbers passes the round aloft. Amen. To each and all it is given to the dance. Amen." Both the dance and the number 12 are taken from the original goddess religion, the old religion. As witches and pagans would say, everything alive in Christianity, especially its heresies, is taken from the old religion. Within the witches' covens, there are 12 members and a high priest, or a high priestess. Women and men in alternating positions dance around the magic circle that has been drawn on the ground or floor and blessed by the high priestess. The witches take their sacrament and jump over the holy fire to stimulate the life-giving energies of the moon. The witches, or Wiccan, wise ones, practice an ancient women's religion, the Dianic cult, whose rites and beliefs were passed down directly from the earliest Paleolithic and Neolithic religions. It has apparently been determined that the secret language used in the covens in the Neolithic Basque. Very interesting, since is Basque, Neolithic Basque. Since Basque is believed to be a remnant of the language of in Atlantis. during the Christian Inquisition at the stake rather than forego their ancient ways. Inherited from the beginning of things, they believed that the fertility of the countryside and the health of the people, pagans means peasant, depended on the performance of their secret rites. They also knew they were involved in the irreducible truth, the unimprovable original. In a Neolithic cave located in Sacromonte, Spain, 13 skeletons, all in priestess dress and holding amulet bundles, were found. They sat in a circle and apparently had participated in a ritual death. The floor was strewn with beads and seeds of opium poppy. The high priestess wore a leather tunic engraved with geometric symbols. We don't know why they chose to die in this cavern north of Granada, but they were sister members of the world's oldest religion. On Crete, the sacred ring dances were performed. Naked women dancers, arms linked, circled with an area enclosed by the sacred horns of consecration. Perhaps they danced to raise the Kundalini powers, to collective free flow of their mental, biological, and spiritual energies directed at a common task or vision. The dance is a recreation of the goddess's original cosmic dance of creation, clockwise, and dissolution, counterclockwise. We don't know what kind of power was generated by these dances, but we can guess. Some other form of energy, real technological power, can be produced by tapping the terrestrial and cosmic energy currents and consciously directing their flow. When the psychic powers, body, mind, and spirit, are correctly concentrated, magical results are possible. All existence is the result of vibration of elements. All matter consists of cosmic light and sound waves vibrating at different speeds, the pure sound of the element and the elemental composition. Sufis believe that by sound, one is able to affect and perhaps control the elements. Elizabeth Good Davis suggests that ancient women shamans were able to control, by group sound, the elemental vibrations with very practical results. Indeed, legends from the Near East, Europe, and Britain tell of great stones being raised, huge megalithic structures built by magic use of sound alone. And in one legend, large stones are set floating in air by women playing sacred pipes. Rocking stones poised in such a way that they are moved at a touch, perfectly balanced, were used for divination and magic. Oracles, always women, were inspired by the sounds of the stones rocking, and the energy is generated. Such rocking stones can still be found throughout the countryside of Britain and the Breton coast of France. How were those Cyclopean walls of Jericho and Malta built? Remember, the builders used no metal tools. Remember, the reoccurring images of the goddess, her priestesses, and dancers' upraised arms. Perhaps this was the posture of the cosmic moment when the goddess appeared. Perhaps this was the posture of the cosmic moment when the goddess appeared, the moment of simultaneous time and non-time, when galactic and earth forces fuse and flow together, directed by the human spirit. Oh my God. Women in a dance circle, upraised arms, are pictured in Stone Age cave and cliff paintings throughout Europe and Africa, the first homes of humanity. Millennia later, in patriarchal legend, Moses, with supported, upraised arms, helped bring the victory to the Hebrews. This iconic posture of a power figure with upraised arms supported by the people goes back to first human experiences of the goddess, and the concept is always related to the fusion of material and spiritual energies in a charged or magic body. The goddess with upraised arms. Let me mark this page. The goddess with upraised arms and parted legs gave birth to the universe and the world. Ancient images also show her as a magic musician, blowing sacred pipes or conch shells. In the Tasmanian cliff paintings found by Mary Leakey, some estimated to be 29,000 years old, all the groups are dancing women, some carrying musical instruments. A tall, wonderful red ochre pipe plays red ochre pipe plays with dashed lines falling from the end of her pipe. A singer's open mouth has the same lines falling from it. These lines are song and could also be rain. A South African Bushman painting shows a naked woman in the sky with magic rain making lines coming from her body, and the rain falling on a reclining woman and man standing with arms upraised. Ancient rain making was a woman's activity, or rain was seen to fall from a woman's body, i.e., the moon. As the possessor of the secret of life, woman's music, dancing, and utterance had magic binding significance, helping to release the life forces not into chaos but into harmonious activity. Women in their dances imitated the animals, especially birds and snakes, and resonated with natural energies of earth and weather. In women's art and pottery design, also, connections were made between meanders, rhythm, music, and dance, rippling waters, the motions of snakes and water birds. In this way, women originated dance, music, art, and ritual as a magic linking of physical and symbolic forces. Young women of the Bevenda tribe in South Africa identify with the serpent force. Older women initiators kneel in the center as pivots around which the young dancers spiral in rhythmic coils and undulations of the python. Collapsing and reviving, they rest like the forces of nature in the seasonal round of death and rebirth. Dahomey priestesses in West Coast Africa still perform a very similar python dance as an energy raiser and communication with departed spirits. These women are invoking more than personal fertility. Their dances are ritual linkings, religare, to bind, of the individual and tribal energies with the entire musical pulse of the earth and with the dance cycle of cosmic energies. This primordial and continuous linking or symbolic binding always took place within, through, and by means of the female body. The health, well being, and experienced ecstasy of a people depended on the health, well being, and experienced ecstasy of this female body, of individual women, of Mother Earth, of the cosmic dancing woman. Sufi dervishes claim that their hand clapping, dancing, whirling, and singing are involuntary expressions of the divine power manifesting itself through their bodies. They say this is a way of life handed down from the remotest antiquity. This training in ecstasy was designed to produce the perfect woman or man within this world, not out of it. Sufi dancing is a vehicle for self-realization, an experience of the self's joyous union with the larger self of the universe. Dervishes developed their ecstatic rites against the background of a moralistically strict and misogynistic Islam. Were they reconnecting in a patriarchal melee with ancient matriarchal rites of ecstatic women shamans? Their teaching is based on the concept of essence. Okay, my gosh. Their teaching is based on the concept of essence. She who knows her essential self knows God. The dervish is called the knower, lover, follower, traveler. Dervish itself means poor man or waiting at the doors of enlightenment. Are Sufis the inheritors of some of the rites of the ancient great goddess? They are, even as the Essenes were originally ecstatic worshippers in the temple of Artemis at Ephesus. The Sufi ceremonial acts is an Amazonian labors, a bronze double crescent of the goddess, direct descendant of the double X's used by the priestesses on matriarchal Crete. In Sufi belief, there is a form of superior mental activity available to human beings, and its power can be manifested on the plane of daily life, baby. But most people cannot open to this mental power because our psychic energies are blocked by rigid, conventional, and dualistic thought habits. This superconsciousness includes precognition, telepathy, and bilocation, the ability to exist in two places at once. Sufis encourage poetic thinking and language and specialize in making startling and cryptic utterances that has given them a reputation as socially unrealistic, even mad. In fact, they are female. Uh-oh. They teach techniques to help free the mind from cultural preconceptions and conditioned ideas, and their methods are not linear and verbal, but multisensory, using auditory, tactile, kinetic sense impacts as well as visual. Sufis believe that their teachings constitute the inner reality of all religions, the core truths and techniques of all human spiritual psychic experience. And so it seems to be. Elements of their teachings can be found in the early troubadour cultures of Europe, in the witch cults and mystic rites of the Knights of the Templar, in alchemic and Gnostic ideas, i.e., in all those pagan European remnants of the great goddess worship which the Christian church worked for so many centuries to destroy. Many of the same core techniques are found among Native Americans, Siberian shamanic cultures, Haitian voodoo cults, and what remains of African magic religion, especially among the Dahomey and other West Coast African goddess people. As Sufis believe in communication without physical presence, they could be spread out everywhere, wandering musical Sufi gestures and arrakeen or harlequins in patchwork costumes, traveling on foot from city to city, teaching by songs and cryptic words, sometimes not speaking at all. No matter how much physical distance separates them, all Sufis feel themselves linked by a force called the baraka, meaning grace, lightness, and beauty. In their ecstatic dance rites, Sufi dervishes go into swoons. They sing, sigh, weep, cry, sway from side to side, thrust knives into their flesh, burn themselves in the heat of delirious passion. In the Mystic Spiral, Jill Peirce describes a dervish dancing in flowing robes. Quote, the dervish starts his dance with his arms crossed over his breast, suggesting a junction in the heart of the descending and ascending vortices, the ancient attitude posture of the goddess. He has his left foot firmly earthed, representing the still axis. By moving his right foot, he begins like a planet to turn on his own axis while revolving with his fellows around a central sun, leading the dervish. He gradually expands, uncrossing his arms and lowering his head over his right shoulder. He raises his right arm of and in consciousness to receive the divine emanation, and lowers his left to return his gift to the earth. He spins gradually faster, as if by his own revolutions he were connected, and his own spirit soars to the divine source. The greater his ecstasy, his expansion and speed, the wider his skirt extends. When his arms are both outstretched to heaven, it is as if the union in his heart, delineated in its state of contraction, spirit into matter, by his crossed arms, has reached its fullest expression, matter into spirit. By the opposing gyres of arms and skirts, the outer expression of the bliss of the divine union in the very stillness of his heart. End quote. If at one point in this dance the right arm pointing to the sky and the left to the earth, the dervish seems very much like the magician in the tarot cards, it is because they come from the same place and have the same meaning. The Paleolithic male shaman in animal skirts and mask stood in the same posture, holding up the lunar baton of commandment borrowed from women's mysteries to be his androgynous sign of power. This magician's baton, misnamed by a male archaeologist, was a woman's lunar calendar stick, the first time measuring device known in humanity, dating from the Ice Age. A male magician or shaman cannot be magic, i.e., female, without it. Other forms of ecstatic dancing come down to us from the Near East, Thrace, the Mediterranean, preserved in Greek legend. One of these is the ecstatic dance of the Bacchantes, wild women intoxicated by chewing ivy leaves, and also the mushroom sacred to Dionysus.